Greetings. I hope everyone is doing well. I am here with you with Wombs, Wells, and Waterways with your host, Shahida Ahmed. I hope you're doing well in these genealogy streets and enjoying some great finds. And if nothing more, you've just kind of opened up a branch of history that is its own lane. It's not something that is in any history book. Um, and it's not something that is being talked about. So you kind of have a unique perspective, information. And I think it's so cool that when you do find those unique things, these tidbits that come together that shape community, that we also give a strong hand to sharing so that it informs others, but also that it may support some insight into another person's community of interest. So, with you today, I am going to give you a preview of some of the things that go along with a story that is so interesting. It's interesting for the mere fact that I don't know what's coming next, right? And many times we don't. We accept the things that have already been done. And so we're really just reporting on what we think of as the facts of the situation. But even as you go deeper, you realize there's so much contextual things that we have to take into consideration. And as just human beings, the idea of our goodness and how that is challenged. And we see that in different time periods, under different situations, and some are, it's recorded. So let me bring you into. So the topic at hand is a subject that I would call Jeremiah Weaver. And so I have been researching the Weaver family as they are in some way connected to my father's people out of North Carolina. And so the backstory is many of the Weavers that I have connected to through DNA are located in some are in North Carolina, but they are in the southernmost part, which is almost bordering South Carolina. So they are, for the most part, South Carolina. And so it's really pushing this narrative. One, it's another coastal region. Two, it actually is the area where my father's people have that we know of in close proximity are also from a coastal region in the northeast region um, of North Carolina near the Albemarle Sound. And so these are not strange occurrences when we start to really take a closer look into how water trails and the waterways themselves play a crucial role in not only the labor industry and trade, but also in the actual transportation component. Like that is not, it's not unheard of to go further south and just follow the water down a route that was traveled for many other reasons. So in that regard, there's that. But I'm not even trying to fill in all the blanks. I'm just keeping that in the front part of my mind. So in this case, I am researching um, the family trees that are connected to my DNA, the people that are connected to my DNA. And so inside of that, what I found was when I went to a specific census, I was stuck, right? Found, I went back 2 or 3 generations, and once we were at this third generation, I was not sure how to find this other person's family. This particular person, um, was a weaver, and this particular weaver was married Um, and I'm connected to many of the descendants from his children, but their children, I should say. And but what is really hard to find is when this particular great, great, great kind of grandparent, I'm not sure how far back for me, but when this particular ancestor was a child, when and alive during the 1870 and would have been a child, what I find is they are not living with their parents. Right? So that's a dilemma. So they're not living with their parents. Usually that's the like, oh, they were 5, they were 9, so that we can find their parents. And then from there, we break through some other loopholes. And so, or brick walls, I should say. But one of the things that this presented, he was living with someone that in the same county, and he was living with someone that was said to be his uncle. And so now and the uncle is widowed. And so it's like, oh man, because in those situations, and if you're not clear, the idea of understanding relationships when it's nieces and nephews, it can be a little bit tricky. It's not always the head of household that is the bloodline. Perhaps that's the uncle by marriage or an aunt by marriage. So you would want to see the spouse of said uncle to kind of follow that trail to see if you can find their siblings. So at the time, I there were other children listed for said uncle. And in that process, I bummed out um, as I was not able to find their death records yet. And that's not too strange because they could have well, anyways, let's just stay on course. But they was not able to find their death records yet. So I'm still kind of piecing that together. But once I realized that I didn't have the clear picture of who the uncle and his widow was, I looked at the surname of the uncle. And so I'm trying to look through newspapers, I'm looking through different other records. And so I didn't come up with anything. But what I did see, one, the surname itself was a common surname that I have already seen in other Weaver trees. So I do a lot of background where there's the documentation part where you want to start and you cannot just leave your research on the screen. And so definitely, I'm gonna put a plug in here. We're gonna have DNA research classes coming up in February. So stay tuned. Um, they will be in person and online, not hybrid, but either or. So we'll have those dates available. Feel free to tune in. It's going to be an even better experience to be in person, where you get to get the energy and you get the hands-on, but online does not disappoint. So keep an eye on that. Now back to the story. So when we're thinking about that, so I feel like I'm stuck in like I made so far, I made so much progress because I had not only found worked out a tree for myself to like see who the people that I relate to and looked at shared matches and how do they relate to each other. And a good chunk of the higher end matches, meaning the closer generation, they were all cousins of each other and through a similar line. And then I'm finding other branches. I learned about other surnames. And so because I have that knowledge, now when I look at the census record and seeing that this particular Weaver's uncle had a surname that is one of the surnames I had logged into my research surnames list. And so that was a red flag for me. I went further in my process and looked at the page on the search. And so I saw other weavers and elder weavers at that. So elder weavers always give me this idea of, could this possibly be somebody's parent that's living in a household next door? And that happens more often than you may think. A parent does not have to be dead or have passed on for a child to be living with another relative. So let's be clear about that. Many adoptions actually happen with other family members. Another thing is when you're looking at, there's sometimes where a family may have a lot of children, and there's a family who may not have as many. And so some of the children live with them. And this is simply a census record, right? It's not like some type of like legal mandate, right? So they could be next door, they could be a couple of houses down, and they have space in the house, they're staying there. The census record is simply documenting the people in the house. And for all intents and purposes, they actually might be living there. Not like, oh, they were just visiting today. No, they were living there, with intention and with that plan in mind. And so those things are a factor. So I'm looking all around the page, and the page after, before, all of those things, and I'm finding other weavers. Not a lot, but I'm finding elder weavers. And so for me, sometimes we have to skip steps to go forward to come back, because what's happening is perhaps things weren't documented, perhaps other people went under the radar in terms of, and this was the 1880 census, I'll put that out there. So 1870 I'm looking for these people, and they're living in slightly different places, and I do find them, but their relationship, I find them in kind of like a mixed house. Like, wait, hold up, where did these people come from? And so, and because relationships were not documented on the 1870 census, it's not always assumed. Oftentimes, sometimes the keeping house position and the head of house is pretty much a giveaway, like, oh, that's probably the husband and wife. And you can follow that along to verify. But, so I'm in the mix here. So I find an elder by the name of Jeremiah Weaver, and I will share my screen now. I think we're ready for that stage of the process. So I find a person by the name of Jeremiah Weaver on the 1880 census. Um, and I'll pull it here. Here's the actual census record. Trying to, oops, sorry about that. So on the 1880 census record, so first of all, this is a town. It's in Williamsburg, South Carolina, and this is a town that is not where I was expecting to look for my Weaver people. For one, many of the Weavers are were that I'm connected to, and there are Weavers all over the world. Okay, the Weavers I'm connected to were connected to the Horry County area, and um, what I found out through some background research, which everyone has to do, right? So what I started noticing is when I was profiling, not just this weaver, but many other weavers, even if they were born in Horry County, I found different types of records that were connected to them that had Williamsburg. I was like, why? If I do a simple search for this one person, I'm going to find a whole bunch of matches that are always coming up in Williamsburg. And so for me, I started asking, well, could this mean that there is a um a kind of like a historic connection between these two counties that allow you to um there's a pattern here, whether it's like a certain labor pattern, trade, maybe this was historically, and maybe just the county and district lines. And so what's happening, I'll save that for another video, but for the most part, it is not strange for this to happen because from what I understand, parts of Williamsburg was also part of Horry County. And in those terms, many of them were counties, but they became districts and then they went back to counties. So there's a whole little backstory to that. But what I want to stay focused on is Jerry. So Jerry Weaver is here and he is here with his wife. And I found him on other census records, and I will explain to you why shortly. Uh, his wife Polly, right? And so just saved this record and I put it in the tree. And so I have Polly here and another census record. I have Mary as his wife. And it's just like, are they the same people? He's old enough in 1880, right? He's 78 years old. How about that? Right? So he's born around 1802, 1803. And so because of that, we're in a different realm. Like Jerry can be a keeper of information if we can follow Jerry a little bit further. And if he perhaps lives for a few more years, he may actually get a death certificate. We'll see. So from here, we see his children, we learn about this, and then there's a niece here. So we have another surname that's in the mix, and we can figure those things out. What we want to go to is that I just want to come along here. Um, this isn't the page, but as you go look, and you can find other weavers. And it's not a lot of pages. 48 pages is nothing. You have those record sets that are 100 and something, 300. 48 is just going through, seeing where other people were living in the same kind of township or district. So here we are, Jeremiah Weaver. And so I was running into a grid lot, like 50-foot wall with Jeremiah Weaver. What I did find as I did searches, he was in the 1870 census. Okay. Um, he shows up in the 1870 census. And there's a few more people here that weren't on the 1880, which is fine. And I'm seeing, and there's another Weaver at same time, the 1870 census still in Williamsburg. Um, and there's more Weavers. In fact, this last name here is one of the surnames that's connected to the Weaver family. And when I look into this next household, there are Weavers living in that household right next door, right? So, and this person is said to be the uncle of another Weaver. So we're just putting it out there. But now we don't have relationships here. So in 1880, Mary was here keeping house. 1870, Mary's here keeping house. In 1880, Polly is keeping house. So we're slowly documenting just the facts because we have to make an assessment and seeing if the same people are living next to each other. That's really important, you know, um, and getting an idea of kind of the proximity of these communities over time. All right, so there's that. So after that, more searching, I find that he was also in the 1860 census. So what is that telling us? Ding, 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 that this person was most likely a free person. And so now we're looking at birth location. We're looking at um, his his status. I think they have him as mulatto here. That's here, there. And we also have still the wife, some of the same children, some other names are here. And we don't have the surname. So this person, AE, um, had a different, okay. I'll touch on that later. But just to let you know, he has a pretty full household. All right, so that we did that. So that's 1860. So if it's on the 1860, we definitely have to see. And we found him in the 1850 census. So he has a lot of documentation of terms of where he was. The only thing I would add is if there's an opportunity to go into the city records and see how things. So we have Jerry Weaver. We have that. Um, and the fact that an 1880 census says Polly is really interesting. It's easy to think that that could be the next wife. Maybe Mary passed away. They're getting older. In the earlier records, it's Mary. So you have these records here. The ages change, like they're not consistent, but we're here. You see more names than you saw before, and we cannot necessarily think that all of these people are children. In fact, I believe it's in the 1880 census, and many of them are not children in the household. They are grandchildren and just one daughter and a niece. Right. So we're seeing people come in and out. We have to go further back. So 1880, he's there. And I'm sorry, 1850. And at the time, this is an interesting time too. It doesn't show um his relationship to kind of like um having money or having the personal or real estate. Um, I do look sometimes at the people here. So here are other people that are living on in the area, not necessarily next door, but in the area. And we see that they're coming from Virginia, North Carolina, Vermont even. So this is not so far off, especially given their proximity to coastal regions and waterways. So that was on the list. And guess what? We even found him on an 1840 census, which is a little bit um, less information than we really want. It just gives us some ages and things. And so when you're ready for it, and you're not always ready for it right when you see it, when you're ready for it, it is worthwhile to document the ages of the people in the household. And like I said, this is not something that should just live on your screen. So it's very hard to hear, but there's a Jerry Weaver here. It's very hard to see, but this is him here, Jerry Weaver. Um, Here we are. So we're looking at a free person. And to be honest, like there's no like rule or automatic like, oh, I'm gonna find out all the information there is about Jerry because he's free. That's not necessarily true. So as we go through here, we see that the only people living in his household are um, and I'll scoot this up. The only people living in his household, so it's blank all the way through here, right? But when we start to look at free colored persons, now there are people showing up. There are two males, both of them seem to be on the adult side, maybe a child, maybe one of them is a child, and then we have um, three young children under 10, and then we have an adult and one more possible older child, but maybe and it's another adult. And so those are the household members. So those they become beneficial in understanding like who's there. But even then, and this is a learning process, like I would have said maybe 2 days ago, I would have said, "Oh, it could mean this," but not anymore. My eyes have been open. So I was stuck on here. There weren't many records that really showed up. Not even on the sense side of like a will. And even a lot of people use this. I don't actually feel this in unless there's like documented records. But if you look here, when you see they've proposed that his father's John Weaver, but they do not list any records that support that. I think it comes from other family trees and things like that sort. So I haven't researched that. So I don't add it unless I am clear about how that information works. So now what I did is I went to Family Search. And what I do know about just my background in coastal regions is you're gonna have some issues. They're gonna get you to court. You're gonna feel that like, so if there's any land that he might have owned, and things, I tried to make use of different resources here. So I put Jeremiah uh Weaver in the keyword search. I could have put it in the name. I don't do it that much. And I didn't put the name of the town, but I think I just put South Carolina. Because at this point, when I think about free people, I do think about mobility. I also think perhaps he came from somewhere else and had to move to another state. I think about all those kinds of circumstances. So, in this regard, I did search. And what I found was data that came back for Williamsburg. That's awesome. There's Edgefield too. I haven't looked at that, but I did look at this, and what I found were ding, 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 court records. Things that are may not be indexed are in here. Um, so this is kind of like an AI improvised, like fast track indexing. So it helps to outline things. And so in the process of this AI component is an opportunity to see transcriptions of things, and many of the transcriptions are not correct. Like I'm like, did I step away and transcribe? I have to decide my time. But so we got to this point of this court record. So, and this makes sense. This is Jeremiah Weaver, and they mentioned his wife's name, Mary. And I'm like, wow, what a amazing find. And it's 1854. So it's before 1870, right? So I'm geeked. You've got me. You've got me. And so I go into the records themselves. And so as you see on the right-hand side, if you've not been into full text search, you'll find some type of um, transcription, and you have the option of clicking this pencil here and adding and editing. I've done that a couple of times, but it's tedious because a lot of it is not 100%. Like it's probably like 80%. And they have this option here, which I haven't used, where you can get an AI generated summary. Um, and it may be more accurate than the actual transcription. I have not used it. So here's to that. So here's the thing, the full text search, um, when you look at it, for instance, there's 79 options for me to choose to see. And I am almost certain that these are probably the connected directly to the Jeremiah I'm looking for. Even this Buford one may be connected. And this is only because I've already read through several long pages of work. So we have this thing, and it's highlighting Weaver also. And then we have sworn testimony by, this has to do with enslavement um records also. So and it's in the early 1800s when he would have been around. So this is really interesting. And you can click the more to find out all of the containments here. Um, I am I'm almost certain that this is the right Jeremiah Weaver. But you have to see a lot, and so I've learned a lot here. So there's different types of courts. And so the language within the record helps me identify a little bit if it's not clearly stated the type of court that's here. And you can also see other names that are mentioned in the Williamsburg records too. So we have Jeremiah Weaver here, but we have a Henry, and I believe these were some of the names listed for his children too. We have a Joshua Weaver, we have these people here, and some of these are listed up here. So we're in the gold mine here. We just have to take our time and cipher through them. Will we find things? And so the thing about court records is each one of these probably belongs to the same court document, just to be 100, like even the year is the same. So 1854, 1850, that's one court document that they've just cited different pages where the name is. So I probably 60 of these options belong to it. And the reason why I say that is I've already looked at one of these, and I've gone through about 20 pages. And so let's get in a preview, because I'm still, like I said, this is so, I just couldn't hold myself from sharing just a little bit of it, but I thought it would be great. So here's one of the perks. Instead of going through the gritty details, I will do a short summary of it. But and we'll save the other like gritty details. You can check our blog for it. In another week and a half, it'll be up, and follow us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and you will see the announcement there for the new blog post, because um the contextual thing. So what happens here is I'm on page 96 of 518, which there are a lot of court records for Williamsburg, right? But and I'm gonna both Jeremiah is in the top and the bottom, and look how messy this. I mean, I'm all for cursive writing, but I need I need folks to write neatly. That's why it's important to teach your children, and yes, to also a follower for yourself, to write neatly. You never know who's going to try to read your stuff later. So here we are. He acknowledges the name of his wife is Mary. Cool. So what I found, and I'm just going to jump right to it, is there's a lot of information. So first of all, this actually kind of states that this is happening in the Williamsburg district. There's a lot of information that's in here, aside from learning about the case itself. So I'm going backwards. I didn't even go forward. I went backwards because I'm like, what came before this? And so we have different motions that are filed. So this is an entire court case. And having a court case run through these are the costs. Like it can get pretty expensive, because as you have witnesses and witness testimony, they have to be paid for, and all of these different things, subpoenas, and he had to issue a few subpoenas. So what we have is a place where there's Robert Brown et al., I guess, against Jeremiah Weaver. And so this is because I know a little bit about it, this is kind of a response to it. So and let's just kind of follow that trail. We're not going to go into so we have a lot of records here. And so here now we have Jerry Weaver or Jeremiah Weaver and wife versus someone else. And so here Jeremiah Weaver would be the plaintiff in our language, or complainant in their language. And so we're seeing kind of like there's like a back and forth going. And I'll fast forward because, like I said, I'm on page 92. I'm going to go back all the way back to page 36. That's almost 60 pages, 50, 60 pages. And that's not to say that there's no more before this. But this is what is closer to the front page. And oh, I'm not there yet. Let me go back one more. Okay, so here we are. This helps us. So this was probably the outer package, the first day of filing. Um, so this is one in the equity court, and that's a different type of court than a common law court. This is more for issues that need more of resolution than just um, judgments. So it's kind of um, there's more context looked for in here. So Jeremiah Weaver and wife versus um, James H. Stone and probably Joshua or something, um, Cutchin, Cutcheron, something. All right, so the contents here, and this is what we're looking at through those 60 or so pages. So we have, someone wrote part one. Can anyone just like part one? Okay, so this is a free man of color during the 1800s, 1850s. So definitely during slavery. And actually, from the context of the case, this was probably something that just got on paper in 1854. The issues happened before 1854. So here we are. So we have the bill. Um, and in this case, and bill in this context means like, what is the complaint, right? So this is like, state what the bill is. What's the issue? So there's that. And then we have exhibits A and B. And I actually know what some of the exhibits are. I haven't studied them yet, but they are mentioned. And so what I want to say is each one of these rows actually may be a clickable option in the full text screen, on the full text screen. And so you may enter in on page 57 when the beginning of said case is on page 37. So you want to take those things in consideration with court cases and how they file. Look forward and backward to just see how the order of things are. Most likely it's not just one page. Because they do copies of things. If this was really a case, especially with someone, and as you read the first part of the case, if you enter in later on, you would not know if this was a person, an African American man or family is involved in this. It doesn't give that because a lot of the language in these court cases is once it's been mentioned, it's kind of like that rules for acronyms. Once it's been spelled out before, we just going to use the acronym. Once the names have been mentioned before, we use references by like aforementioned, aforesaid, things like that. And so often it's just if you haven't read page chapter one, you may not be clear. So getting all the pages is very important. So we have the bill, we have exhibits that are filed. And this is one of the defendants. So it's probably a response. So when you have a complaint, you're allowed to file an answer to the complaint. And if you have a complaint from more than one person, then you're going to have more than one answer. We have orders that were issued. Oh, and I see annexed answers of such and such person. Another bill, a revision of the original bill. And like I said, bill is the complaint. So there's a revision to the complaint. Now they're going to answer to the revision of the complaint. You see where this is going? And now there's more people that may have been added to the complaint. So I see several other names added here. And then another answer. Whew. And then the decree, right? And so all or some of these may not, all of these may not have been found. Some pieces may have been lost too degraded. So, and oftentimes when you go in person to these places, court cases could be moved to different districts. So, and they say part one. So we may not actually know the final outcome by the time we get to the page 100 and something. So those are things to keep in context. But what I wanted to highlight is I did get a chance to, and I just want to do a preview because I'm not going to go. And once I get I have to get through these 60 pages and transcribe them for myself. Like that's important for me. To better understand the story. It gets a little sticky because it becomes he said, she said in some of the answers when people feel like they're accused of something that didn't happen or when they're lying and they bring witnesses and the all the things. So what I do know, and I will like just put that little good information here. What I do know is the original person that he filed a complaint against was not James H. Stone. I do know that. And haven't gone before this. I think, let me just see. This may be a different case. Okay. It has McCutcheon in here. Um, so Cooper, Thomas McCullough, blah, blah, blah. Yes, so they are connected, but they are connected. And the only reason I know is because I have read and I know some of the names of the people. So the McCutcheon family is, uh, I think Joseph or something McCutcheon is mentioned as one of the defendants. And so what happens is you can bring in other people to talk on this person's behalf. I think it was James or Joshua. But let's stay on Jeremiah's case. So what I did find, so as I go into the case, so this is the first part, which is the bill to regarding like what is the complaint at hand, which was filed in 1854. And so, will I be making you read through this, or would I want you to try to attempt to read through this? I really don't. It is very messy. I've seen very good penmanship on these court records dating back to the 1700s. Um, this is messy. This is tacky. But I will say, this is the things that you want to pay attention to in these cases that are not always the most obvious. And so here's some of the things. One of them, here's this. His Jeremiah Weaver and his wife, Polly, otherwise called Mary Weaver. That solved one of my census questions right away because I wasn't sure if Polly was a different person than Mary. So now I know that Polly and Mary are the same person. Nowhere else would I have found that. I might have gotten, even if I saw different names on death certificates as parents of said children, I still may have said, oh, some of them had that mother and some of them had this mother. There's just no definitive way, but it pretty much clears it up. First sentence. So that was valuable information that you can get more familiar information and details from court records because especially it may not even be that this particular ancestor was the one who had to file a complaint, but they may have been a witness. And when you're a witness, they interrogate you, especially Black folk. They interrogate you. And so they get the details of where you're from. The second thing that was really interesting after finding out about his wife was um that um and it's not in this first part here, but later on as they're talking, as he's explaining things, is one of the things is that he lists that he is actually from the Georgetown district. So it is in Williamsburg. The census record is listed as Williamsburg County, but he and other people that are in this case are said to be from the Georgetown district. And so that's a language thing, right? So we have to understand what was happening, what is considered the Georgetown district in 1854. What area does that cover, and what does it look like before, sometime before 1854 and sometime after. So in terms of like locating your people. So here's that. There's that. Now, the second thing that was really cool, and this has to go toward transcribing, is that they did mention, and see how they like put this little arrow because they forgot to write something in. I mean, when you're not typing out the court records, it's either you write it all over again or you do these little, I'm going to fit this in. And so there's a statement in here that says that this person, Polly, or his wife, was listed in one of as one of the legatees. I think I'm transcribing it correctly. That was mentioned in this person, John Williams' will, right? And so they go in to say that Polly was listed in a will of someone back in 1810. So we're in 1854. So he's setting the stage. So in 1810, and this gave the exact date and everything. And they also said that part of his will, and now I have another record that I want to find that is going to be important for this, because I don't know where John Williams's plantation was, but he had one. I don't know where John Williams is said to have. Oh, they do say it here. They're saying that Polly and this person John is from the Georgetown district. That's one of the pieces. And what do they say in the will? And he's bringing it up in this case, 44 years later, he's bringing it up to say what? That by among other things in this will, um, that he has manumitted the freeing from slavery a person named Molly and her 7 children. And he named they're named including Polly. And that's what they're saying, that Polly is included in this group. And I might infer that she might be one of Molly's children, but she's definitely part of the group of people that were manumitted in 1810. And so, first of all, that actually establishes that she was alive at during 1810, because birth dates can be a little bit different. In 1880, I think she was listed as being about 69 years old. So it said that she was probably born in 1811. So 1810, she was already included in the will. So there's that. Um, and what happened is this person bequeathed to said Molly and her 7 children, therein named, that these Negro slaves and 3 Negro slaves, in addition to that, Harry, Jim, and Amy, along with her 2 future issues, her future issues and increase. So her children and their children, and to be equally divided amongst them, share and share alike. So he left them probably like land and property that had to be divided by all of them. And so Polly is so they're using this to explain, kind of like to set the tone that one thing is being clear that she is a free person. And they also mention here that both of them, the orator and oratrix, are free people of color, free persons of color. So they establish that and they establish why. And then they bring in the idea that she has some land coming to her because um, apparently the youngest of the children couldn't get the share until they turned 21. And it's explained in this messy explanation, poorly written details. So there's that. And so we're finding out about them before we even get to the complaint. And so that's such a gem here. So they do mention them over and over again. And so at the age of 21, and at this point, she probably is 21. Now, here's the thing, and that Clarissa, one of the issues of Amy, so one of Amy's children is Clarissa, and she fell in the share um, of Polly, into Polly's share. And so that's kind of how that was. And they said that Polly then became married and to Jeremiah, and um, they became entitled to the said um, enslaved person Clarissa. So when she got married, I this gets a little wonky. And like I said, I need to go and hear. And sometimes hearing or reading other people's perspectives on the same situation helps you get a better context of nah, I can tell that's a lie. I get there's sometimes you can feel that, but also you get more idea when they start to repeat the same thing over, you get a okay, that's what happened first, then this happened after. So I'm not clear why they keep referring to this person, Clarissa, as an enslaved person, even though she is by their own testimony that in 1810 she was included in that group of people that was supposed to be manumitted and that these shares were given. Only thing we're clear about is that Clarissa was probably a young person. And so this story unfolds a little bit more and more, and they do include like these things. They say in this thing, Exhibit B is the the kind of the inventory and information that came from that will in 1810. So they actually are producing documentation from 1810 into an 1854 case, which is really amazing. So in this process, what we're doing is unfolding the clues that actually connect us to more information about Jeremiah Weaver and also other record sets. So I already know I need to check on a few wills. And so just to jump ahead a bit, I'm going to come out. I'll leave it on the screen, but just to jump ahead a bit, as you read through this and try and transcribe it, you will want to transcribe it. They start to talk about some type of event that happened sometime in 1830. So 20 years later, a situation comes up, and what happens is, um, what I want to bring light to is not just that the event that this case is based on is something that happened in 1830 and 1840. Um, and so it involved money, it involved an agreement, a contract between a free person and a white man. And these kinds of things are going to be decided in a court of equity or law. And so, one of the things that's really important to mention is that in this, the reason why this gets really tricky and things have to get amended is during the course of the filing, the person that he is filing against dies. And so he, in fact, has a will. And so it is actually, this case is centered around an enslaved person or person that's considered enslaved, who is Clarissa, who is part of this group of people that should not, I don't even know why they're calling her enslaved unless she was put back into slavery. So Clarissa is actually the center of this argument here. Apparently, um, she was used to pay a debt. Can you believe it? So this story gets very, oh my, for real? Like for that, what could have happened? And so Clarissa's at the center of this, and that she is needed to create some type of currency of a paid due. So her and I believe two of her children were now given it as a payment to another person that I haven't mentioned. I believe his name is William. And inside of this situation, William is actually um William dies eventually. So that's the, don't want to keep you in suspense with that. But what happens is he goes through the process of how the agreement came about in the first place. And I have some mixed feelings about Jeremiah Weaver too, because I'm like, what are you doing saying, what are you doing with an enslaved person in your said possession? Like, why are you referring to that? I do wonder if he was forced into that kind of situation where they were all free. Who would sell somebody into slavery? On another hand, when he received his manumission, he was probably a little kid. He was manumitted as a little kid, so maybe he doesn't quite understand the the gravity of being an enslaved person in that way. I have no, I'm trying to figure this out. The other thing is just the sheer um understanding of how mm, he was able to use her to do that. And then what happened is he died. But what happens is in the will of this William person, he had he had given her to someone else. And apparently, he had given her to someone else prior to his death. So it wasn't like a condition of him dying. He had already passed her on to someone else. And so, and for Jeremiah, he was like, that's not what we agreed on. And the thing about it is, I believe the wife was in a even more of a tangled predicament because she and Clarissa are more than likely related. And I'm assuming, because there is some mention, I glanced over things as I was going backwards into time, and I do see some testimony around an inference that Polly is probably related to Clarissa. And they were enslaved or their families were at least enslaved in the same place. And so all of these things create kind of a complex situation. Like she's, and so there's a part in here where he says his wife goes to the white man and says, has our bill been satisfied yet? Like, how much do we owe? Like, this is going on too long. Like, you're not keeping us updated. And in the interim, he says something like, you know, it's this amount. And she comes back and makes the payment and says, okay, we're done. Now give us back Clarissa. And he comes up with this thing where he's like, oh, I lost it. And they didn't always pay in cash. It's the equivalent of something like a check during the 1800s. It was often called a note. The equivalent of a check was given, and he was he was saying, "Oh, you gave that to me. That's right, but I lost it." Like giving someone a check and they say, "I lost it." It's like writing another one isn't like the way we would write a check. And I'm going to stop share here. Um, that's not the way we would approach that situation. We would want to, we have to stop payment on it in present day situation, and we would have to get in that time someone else to endorse said money. So it's not, and so she's like, what? And he's like, oh, for your trouble, I'll give you some land and a horse and but the funny thing is that he did not want to lay up and say, I'll give you back Clarissa. He would give all the other things, but not the person. And for me, I think it's a story of power and and in this, like you are willing to part with cattle, um, horses, land. Oh, for your trouble, I'll give this to you, but not really honoring the agreement. Uh, a couple of other things that before I close out, just to go back, is that there is a point in the complaint, the initial complaint, where he's kind of given testimony about what took place, and he says, this person William wrote up a contract based upon their agreement on using her to pay this bill. And so, and the understanding was that after this bill was met, the fee for this um, owed money was met, that, excuse me, that she was to be returned to him. And in that process, that is such and I'm like a fly on the wall reading this like it's a novel or something, because I'm like, don't believe him. That doesn't even seem. So he writes up a contract and he asked Jeremiah to sign it. And Jeremiah says, I'm ignorant. This is his testimony. I'm ignorant and I'm not able to read. And so he says there was someone there in the store and he asked him, "Would you take a look at this? Would you sign this?" Like he's trying to like how do you ask me to sign something that I can't read for myself? And I'm like, what do you think they're gonna say? They're like, do you have any friends? That's the other part. Is there's not anybody, no other Black person you can get to come and help you read through this? Um, and really, that says a lot. It's telling a lot, because I'm just like, what is allowing him? So in the interim, he says something like he's been a good friend to us. He's been kind to us in the past. He's saying things like this. So I had every confidence that, and I said to him, "Is this what we agreed on? Is this what you have here? What we agreed on?" And he said, "Yes, this is what we agreed on." And he signed it. And apparently, the gentleman that was in the store that was not part of the agreement, he said, "You just lost her." And I don't know that how the story really unfolds, what the judgment ends up being. Part of me wants to fast forward to it, but I encourage people when you come with these heavy, just break it down into small pockets, because like you're going to find out information about other people. And so the fact when these people this particular person that he had an agreement with died, other people die in the process, right? And so executors that were assigned to the will become the new defendants. And so they have amended certain things. And then when the person died, they brought in the children or wife of the said defendant to make testimony. And so it becomes a very prolonged process. I have no idea if there was ever a resolution or a judgment that actually resolved this issue. And I'm sure I will find out in the 60 plus pages in part one, perhaps part two, because when you deal with these court cases, you can have it at the circuit level, at the district level, because this is it listed, I believe at the top of it, it did say the district court. So it's at the district level. And then he has the opportunity to appeal said issues. And so then it becomes part of the appellate court, which moves to a larger district court scenario. So it's very interesting. And why I mention that is that these records could be housed in different places, depending upon what district or what area it had to be filed under. So these are some of the tidbits that come with finding out about our ancestors beyond 1870. And I will hopefully just this is definitely going to be a part 10, part 11 kind of situation because it's unfolding and I do want to break it down because there are gems in each piece. So right now I'm in the area and phase of looking and analyzing the initial complaint. I have glanced over some of the answers to the complaint. They'll have quotation marks like, and he said this, and I'm like, was he there? So anyway, um, and I'm going to enjoy being able to look at the exhibits, hopefully, that were presented as part of the case. And like I said, you never know that all the parts of the case are in even when I go in person to different archives, like sometimes you get a folder that's filled to the brim, and then another time it's like, where the rest of this? What happened to the rest of the file? You know. So hopefully you got some kicks out of seeing this. This was a very interesting story. And one of the things that I hope gets revealed is if there are other relational um facts that are presented, like who Polly's people are, um, learning about what happened to Molly because obviously Molly was probably an older person. So if Jeremiah were and then they were born around 1800, Molly may have been in the area of she's already had 7 children, right? So she might be in the area of in 1810 she already had 7 children, right? So she's going back to the 1700s. And so we're going to look for documentation in different ways. Now, my DNA informs me of other things that are not able to explain why I will look somewhere else. But hopefully, in this process, I will look other places because I know my people in Northeast North Carolina are connected to these people here in Williamsburg, in Georgetown, in Horry County, South Carolina, and they are connected through this line. So um, definitely check us out. Definitely post some questions, or if you want more information about the actual record, please do. But anyone could get to it on Family Search. The other thing is definitely put some information. What would you do next? How would you take this information and go one step further? Learning about how someone fought in a court case really gives you information about the people that and around them, if witnesses were called, all of these things. So don't shy away from the messy writing. Um, Print it. I think it's good to do both. I'm not a screen person, so I always print I probably won't print all 60 pages, but page by page, a little bit I can highlight, look a little closer, hold it in my hand. But honestly, on the computer screen, I just zoom it in so I can know each word. And once you get the rhythm of it, it actually presents like, oh, that's what he's saying. Now the letters come together. But have a blessed day and look out for our next post on Jeremiah Weaver. Peace.